Hello everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar, Rover Product Enhancements v5.22, Dashboards Reinvented, Group Shoulder Dates, and more, presented by Stay in Touch Implementation Consultant, Chris Devlin. I'm your host, Erin Fisher, the content writer here at Stay in Touch. Today's presentation will cover how you can get the most out of the Rover v5.22 product release. In this webinar, we will explore the addition of dashboards for housekeeping, front desk, and managers, review new scheduled exports added in response to COVID-19, identify room features and preferences filters added to the nightly diary, illustrate the warning message added when changing a child rate from one parent rate to another, explore changes to room type overbook pop-up, discover the addition of the forecast report to scheduled reports, review activity log records for adding billing group instructions for a group, explore the addition of group shoulder dates, identify updates to the open new bill after end of day toggle, and illustrate the ability to force an adjustment reason. We will have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer them in the order they are received at the end. And that's all I have for now. Chris, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you. All right. And Chris, I believe you're still on mute.
Thank you so much, Erin. My apologies, there's a bit of noise in the background right now, so apologies for that. I hope you can all hear me okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you so much. So we're going to start by going through some of the more simple additions to the system, and then we'll actually dive into the system to go through some of the more fun things that we can discuss today. The first thing that we're going to talk about are some of the exports that we've added in relation to the COVID-19 outbreak. The first one is our guest details by arrival date, the inclusions of which you see on the right-hand side of the screen here. This has been done for some of those countries and areas where we have to provide some information to some of the local governments. So that's a new export that you're able to access right away in the scheduled exports area. We've also added, bear with me one moment, a cancellations by arrival date export and a cancellations by cancel date export, the inclusions of which you can also see here on the right-hand side. This is useful given the high numbers of cancellations that some of our clients have been seeing recently, and it includes some useful information such as what the ADR was, what the potential predicted room revenue was, what the predicted total revenue was, and this is based on customer feedback and requests that we've had over the past few weeks and months. In addition to that, as part of our regular cycle of adding reports to our report scheduler, we've also added the forecast report, which you can now export as a CSV file. So that's now available to you as part of the scheduled reports. We've also added the ability to see room features and preferences to the filters area of the room diary. And this is available in both the book and the view mode. So as soon as you access the room diary, this should be available for you all to see on the right-hand side immediately. So if you went ahead and clicked on something like away from elevator and apply, it'll go ahead and automatically only show you those rooms that are away from elevator that meet those criteria, basically. We've also made some enhancements to some of our warning messages and our pop-ups, which we'll briefly discuss here. This is the first one. So when changing a child rate from one parent to another, you'll now see this message. So that's some functionality we added a few releases ago. We can change the dependent rate from one parent to another. And when you do that, it's just going to give you some confirmation message just to let you know that you're doing that. That message will disappear once you click on save. And if you're changing it back to the original parent rate, that message will not appear. So it is just if you're changing it to a new parent rate. Additionally, we've made some changes to our room type overbook pop-up just to make it a little bit clearer as to what's actually happening. And this pop-up, again, does only happen and is only accessible to those users who have permissions to overbook room types. We have also added the capability to record billing instructions for groups in both the group activity log, as you see here on the screen, as well as the stay card activity log. So that's now accessible within the activity logs in both those areas for us. We've made some updates to the open new bill after end of day toggle. This was some functionality that we introduced specifically for those of our customers who had Lightspeed integrations, but we've made this now available to everyone. On the screen here, you can see a screenshot of an account, as you see under front desks and accounts. The open new bill after end of day toggle. It's going to be off by default for you. And basically, if we toggle this on, and you have an account in which there are financial transactions on the active bill, Rover will create a new bill window during end of day. That's really the gist of what's going to happen there. But they'll be defaulted to be toggled off unless you toggle that on the specific account. So that's the bulk of what we wanted to go through on the PowerPoint. The rest of what we're going to go through, group shoulder dates, forcing adjustment reasons, and the various dashboards, I'm actually going to take you through in the system. So I will take us out of our lovely little PowerPoint here, and I'll go ahead and open up Rover. So the first thing we'll take a look at is our group shoulder dates. So I've gone ahead and created a group in one of our environments here, and it is called New Shoulder Group Test. And I have it here with some shoulder dates in advance and behind the from and to dates. If I navigate over to room block details, you'll see that we have these new pink columns which highlight the actual shoulder dates. Notice that you can't actually block inventory on these shoulder dates. It will just record the pickup that can be blocked, basically borrowing from house inventory. That's the functionality here. You go ahead and block your inventory on the actual start, between the start and end dates here. And what we can do here in the rooming list, for example, is we can go ahead and pick up a reservation. And I can make one here for, let's say, John Smith. Update details. And if I go into John Smith's reservation here, I can actually go ahead and choose from the shoulder dates that we have here. I can go ahead and choose the 4th, for example, and then update that. There is no availability in the group allocation for the selected dates. Do you want to borrow from house? So it's giving us the ability to borrow from the house availability as part of the groups. So whereas previously you would have to actually extend out the group dates, we can now borrow from house. So that's how we can do it from within the group rooming list. For Jane Smith, if I go ahead and look for her reservation, we can also do it from within the stay card itself in a very simple way using the calendar here. You'll see the shoulder dates are available to drag and drop from. There is no availability in the group allocation for the selected dates, borrow from house. And we can go ahead and do that there as well. So that's some great functionality that many of our customers have requested for some time, so we're very happy to see that in production. We have also added the ability to force adjustment reasons, to make adjustment reasons mandatory. And I've gone ahead and done this in my training hotel here. To activate this for your property, you're going to want to navigate to Settings and Settings. And if you go under Financials, you'll see this new Force Adjustment Reasons area. All you'll simply want to do is toggle the Force Adjustments Reasons to active, and then you can begin adding reasons for your properties. I put in 4. I put in service recovery, posting error, per management, and then package adjustment allowance, just as an example. So you can certainly put in whatever would be most appropriate for your property, and you can have as many reasons as you would like. Once you've saved those changes, what that will mean for you is if we go into either an account or a guest bill, and I'll go ahead and pull up a guest bill now. We'll go into test. Wherever I make a negative posting or an adjustment, it's going to make that mandatory for me. So I'm going to go into this bill here. If I add a charge, for example, and let's say we're doing a room adjustment. So I'm choosing room charge. We're going to make it $100, and I'm going to make that a negative amount. And as I do so, you'll see the UI will change here, and I have to select an adjustment reason. So per management, service recovery, whatever I've stipulated in my list of values here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose per management. I can put in a reference and description and then post that charge there. Additionally, if I go ahead and select the edit option using the pencil on the right-hand side, the very same requirement is here. I have to select an adjustment reason, such as service recovery. And then I can go ahead and change the amount there. When we do these adjustments, it is noted on the financial transactions adjustment report, and it does again make it mandatory that you have to select one of these reasons. So that's another one of those things that our customers have been requesting for some time, so we're also very happy to see that in production. Another great thing that we've recently added, and it's going to look a little bit different the way that I show it to you now, just based on my user access level, is our analytics dashboards. And I'm going to take you through these dashboards now one by one, just to give you an overview as to how they function. This has been released in production and is available to all of you already. So I'm going to go through them, and hopefully you'll start playing around with them and getting some useful data from them. I'm going to navigate between a few different properties here just so we can see different data. And I'm going to start in this dev environment. And what you'll see is on the top left hand of your dashboard, some different options. Now, when I navigate, I'm going to choose analytics, and I'll have a list, but for most of you, it'll actually be drop downs in your dashboards themselves, just based on your user role. Because I'm a hotel admin, I have a different list of values here. But these are the different types of dashboard analytics that we have. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, some are for housekeeping, some are for front office, and some are just general. So let's take a look at our overview first. And what our overview is showing us here is our performed and our remaining overview of our activity for the day, both our front office, our operations activity, and our housekeeping activity. So I have 3 arrivals remaining, and I have 1 that's checked in. I have 1 departure that's checked out, and I have 2 departures pending. I have 1 stayover that's dirty and 1 stayover that's being cleaned. And then down here, you see that 1 room is inspected, and we have currently 0 dirty rooms down here at the bottom of the screen. We can also go into the filter icon on the top right-hand side here, and I can actually drill this down into particular room types. I have very few room types in this particular environment, but you would see all of your room types listed out here. And we can also change the date here too if we wanted to see historic data. That's an option for us also. Toggling back over, we can look at our priority here. So this is a great screen for us to see maybe different room types that we need to prioritize, how we want to tackle our volume for the day. So what we can see on the top of the screen is our arrivals. So we have 3 arrivals remaining and 1 checked in. Of those 3 arrivals, 1 is inspected, which leaves us 2 short. So we don't have enough clean rooms, basically inspected rooms, to check in all of our arrivals just yet. And that actually makes sense because we have currently 2 pending departures in my very small property and only 1 that's checked out. So there isn't much opportunity in this particular hotel for housekeeping to have done much about that right now. But again, we have a few different options here. We can also drill this down into particular room types, and we can see what we have available here for that as options. Toggling back over, I'm going to look at our arrivals. So here we can see remaining, ready, not ready, remaining and performed for housekeeping and for front office. You can see your arrivals broken out into different types, such as early check-in. You can see your departures pending, how many late checkouts you have for the day, and then you can see your housekeeping statuses on the left-hand side. If I drill in here, we can also do this by room type too, which is super useful. And again, during the day, this is dynamic, so you'll see this flow throughout the day as activity is performed. Speaking of activity, we're going to move over to a different property so we can see our activity dashboard here. This represents arrivals, departures, cadence over the course of the day, visualized by type. So let's take a look at that. Now for this particular date, I don't have much activity, so I'm going to choose a date in the past just so we can get a better reference to look at here. Again, not much going on, but you'll see how it breaks it out into different activity, late checkout, checkout, VIP check-in, early check-in, and so on and so forth, based on the time of day. So you can get a really good picture, a really good indicator here as to how your business flows based on the time of day, which can be very good for things like scheduling your staff. You can do that also by room type if that's useful for you. And you can just simply toggle to show yesterday's data as a quick selection too. Moving back over, we can look at our room's performance. Now, this is very useful for our revenue team in particular. This grid is broken up into 4 quadrants. You'll see the top left is yesterday, the top right is today. We have year to date on the bottom right and month to date on the bottom left. In the center quadrants, you have your occupancy statistics for each of them. So that's what that little center quadrant is doing, and then the revenue on the outer quadrants. Wherever you see an overlap, you can just simply click and it'll show you the one that's behind it. So that's how you can kind of see those hidden figures. Now, yesterday, today, month to date, year to date, that's very useful information to have, but it is also good to compare year over year. So we can go ahead into our filter here and we can show last year's information. And the default is same date last year. So you can see calendar date year over year, your variance for today, your variance for yesterday, year to date and month to date. It is also useful, not just for your calendar date, but also to do your same day. So on a Thursday, you might want to compare your Thursday year over year because you'll have different business on a Sunday, even though the date might be the same calendar-wise, obviously the day business will be very different. So this is a great tool to compare day over day. But then we also give you an option to have mixed too. And what mixed will do for you is for the first top 2 quadrants, yesterday and today, that will compare by day of week. And for the bottom 2 quadrants, that will compare by calendar date. So that's giving you a mix of both values. Obviously, this is a demo environment with, not really comparable revenues, but it gives you a good indicator of what's actually going on in the system with these values. So that's a super useful on-screen indicator of your variance year over year. And if we go into our distribution here, this is a customizable display of distribution data by chart type and a combination of filter elements. So this is, again, a very, very useful screen. So it's giving you 7 days worth of data. And if I filter in here, you can see some really valuable information. So the first chart type is our occupancy data, and we can aggregate our occupancy data by things like our room types. So if I want to see how our occupancy was by room type, that's very useful there. I can also do it, as you can see, by market segment, by source, so on and so forth. But perhaps I don't want to see my occupancy. Perhaps I want to see my rooms revenue. And I want to see my rooms revenue by room type. Or I want to see my rooms revenue by market. We don't have too many markets built out in this particular property, but you can see how this is a great representation to see on screen how your mix is by day for really any of these values, these chart types, your RevPAR, your ADR, so on and so forth. It's a real great way to get that information dynamically on screen for any given date range. And then last, but by no means least, we are going to take a look at our PACE report, which is the bottom here. And just as an example, this is pacing for today, but we can choose any date that we want here. And it shows us our on the books, new and cancellations. So this is actually a very simple demonstration of how the PACE is working. You can see a new reservation that was created on the 26th of February. That reservation stayed on the books until we had an additional reservation. And then we had a cancellation the following day, which brought us back down to 1. One additional reservation was created here, which brought us up to 2. But then unfortunately, we had some cancellations, which brought us to 0. But we've had some bookings, which has picked us up. And then a couple of cancellations here on the 8th, which has brought us down 4 altogether, actually. So this is a really great screen for us to be able to see how we're pacing for a particular day, if our strategy is working correctly, if we need to make some adjustments to our strategy, and where that adjustment might need to come from. What's going to help us with making that kind of decision is if we go into our filter and we can drill down, we can see how we're pacing by room type. We can see how we're pacing by market. We can see how we're pacing by source and by segment and by origin. So for example, if I want to take a look here at transient, which I believe most of this is, I can filter for just my transient reservations and see, is it transient that's having an effect here? Is it corporate that's having an effect here? So on and so forth. Again, for your suite room types, if you want to see how they're pacing, you can go ahead and choose your suites, so on and so forth. So a really great dynamic screen there to verify that your strategy is working and make any adjustments based on what you're seeing on these screens. So these are our dashboards, great new addition. They're in production for you to use already, so hopefully you'll start getting some use out of those. And with that, that's all I have to take us through for the moment. So I'm actually going to go ahead and open it up to questions. Erin, if you would like to go ahead and open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for that insightful presentation. I would now like to turn over the floor for questions. Remember, you can submit questions through the question box in the middle of the control panel. All right, so it looks like our first question is from Brenda. For shoulder dates functionality, will the group show up when the guest is first making the reservation and they know they will want to come in a day earlier than the group dates? Or will we have to make the reservation in the group dates and then add the shoulder days?
You would have to make the reservation in the group dates and then add the shoulder dates. That's a great question, but that's exactly how you would have to do it. Yeah.
Great. All right, and then the second question, who can use each of the dashboards?
Oh, that's another great question. So the different dashboards are actually tied to your user roles. So based on your user roles, you'll have access to the different dashboards. So for example, if you have the user role of housekeeping manager, that would give you access to the overview and priority dashboards. If you are a front desk manager user role, you'll have access to the arrivals, the priority, and activity. If you are a manager, you'll have the room performance, distribution, and pace. And if you are a hotel admin, you'll have everything, just like I have on screen here. You'll have access to all of them. Yeah, that's a great question.
Great, thank you. And then we have another one from Brenda. Will the adjustment reasons show up on the financial transactions adjustment report?
Absolutely, it will. Yeah, that's a great question.
All right, thank you. And then what's the benefit of the open new bill after end of day toggle?
Really, the benefit for that is for those finance teams who want to keep a separate bill window for different transactions from different dates. So it is really just an option for you. It isn't essential for you to have it, but for those who want to have different bill windows for different transactions on different dates, it'll just do that for you automatically, as opposed to you having to manually create a new bill window, transfer those transactions over. Just a way for the system to take care of that functionality for you.
Great, thank you, Chris. And it looks like we don't have any further questions. Let me give everyone a few more seconds to enter those questions. All right, since there are no more questions, I'd like to take to the floor to offer some final thoughts. All right. So in this webinar, we explored the addition of dashboards for housekeeping, front desk, and managers, reviewed new scheduled exports added in response to COVID-19, identified room features and preferences filters added to the nightly diary, illustrated the warning message added when changing a child rate from one parent rate to another, explored changes to the room type overbook pop-up, discovered the addition of the forecast report to scheduled reports, reviewed activity log records added for billing group instructions to a group, explored the addition of group shoulder dates, identified updates to the open new bill after end of day toggle, and illustrated the ability to force an adjustment reason. With that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you all for coming. If you have any additional questions, as always, feel free to email me at erin.fisher@shijigroup.com. Thanks again.